We begin today the Gemara on Daf Tzadikei Amud Beis, about 10 lines down from the beginning of the Amud, where it says Rabbi Yosi Omer. So this goes back to the Mishnah before on Tzadik Dalet Amud Aleph Amud Beis, where the Mishnah speaks about the case where a person's wife left overseas and then he was told that she passed away. He got married to her sister, and now he's told that not that she's told, she comes back. So the Mishnah said he can go back to his wife, even though he was living with her sister, but it doesn't matter. He can go back to his wife. On that, the Mishnah brought Rabbi Yosi, which argues with the Tanna Kama. And he says a lashon, Rabbi Yosi says, it's a lashon which is very unclear what he's saying. The lashon of Rabbi Yosi was, Rabbi Yosi aime kol shepaisel v'chulu. So what was the full lashon of Rabbi Yosi? Rabbi Yosi said, kol shepaisel aydei acherim, if what he did passels others, then paisel aydei atzmai, then he passels for himself as well. If he does not passel for others, he will not passel for himself. What was Rabbi Yosi saying? On what point is he arguing with the Tanna Kama? So the Gemara here is going to discuss this and go through a few different options. So what is Rabbi Yosi saying? So if you'll say, Rabbi Yosi is saying as follows. So the case that I just mentioned that the Mishnah was speaking about is that a person's wife went overseas. But we had before in the Gemara, it said that the Mishnah was speaking not only about a case where his wife went overseas, but his wife and his brother-in-law went overseas. And his brother-in-law was married to his wife's sister. Two brothers married to two sisters, and his wife and his brother-in-law went overseas. That was the case, and what happened? And the Edom came and said that his wife and his brother-in-law both died. So therefore he says to himself, so I can marry my brother's wife, which is his wife's sister. That's the story over here. And then what happens? Both his wife and the brother-in-law show up. Now, so on this, Rabbi Yosi is saying as follows. The Tanna Kama said regarding this case, the Ozil Ishte V'Gisel Medina Sayam. His wife and his brother-in-law went overseas. So now what's going to be the halacha if after he was told that they both died, they both came and showed up? Eishes Gisai Asira. So the wife of his brother-in-law will be usher to go back to her husband. This is the case of the halacha of the beginning of the Perek. Any woman that went and had a relationship with another man because she thought that her husband died, so she can't go back to her first husband. So the wife of his brother-in-law will be usher to him. And the Ishtoi Sharia, but his wife that he thought was not alive, and he had a relationship with her sister, she could go back to her husband. That's the halacha that the Tanna Kama is saying. And on this, Rabbi Yosi says, no, this is not true. Just like his wife is allowed to go back to him, even though he got married to her sister, same is also regarding the wife of his brother-in-law. She could also go back to him, even though usually we say that a woman that had a relationship with another man cannot go back to her first husband that she thought was not alive. But over here, she could go back to the first husband. And the reason is, as the Mefarshim explained, we'll see soon in the Gemara, this whole halacha of a woman that thought that her husband died, that she cannot go back to her first husband. What is this based on? So we learned before in the beginning of the Perek that there are two different points over here. One point is the fact that it's a knas. Because she didn't make a proper investigation whether her husband is alive or not, Chachamim made a knas. If she had a relationship with another man, she can't go back to her first husband. That's one point. But there's another point here. And that is that when she had a relationship with another man, people are going to think that she got married to the other man. She was really married to him. The first husband divorced her, and she got married to the other man. And now the second man gave her a get, and she's going back to her first husband. And you're not allowed to do that. People are going to think that he's getting married to a woman that he once divorced before. That's another reason why you're not allowed to go back to the first husband. So what Rabbi Yosi holds over here is, in this case, nobody is going to think that you married the other person, that what happened over here is that the first husband divorced her, and that's why you went and married her. Why not? Because we're talking about a sister. We're talking about two brothers that got married to two sisters. When a person divorces his wife, you're not allowed to marry the sister. A sister is also to marry, a sister of your wife is also to marry as long as your wife is alive. If she passes away, then you can marry a sister. Even after you divorce her, you still can't marry a sister. So in this case, what Rabbi Yossi is saying is, she's going to be able to go back to her first husband because over here, it is no chashash. Nobody will think to say that the second husband married her and divorced her, and now the first husband is remarrying a wife that got divorced. So that's what Rabbi Yossi is arguing. Rabbi Yossi is saying that you can marry your wife again, your brother-in-law could marry his wife again. That's what Rabbi Yossi is saying. So now let's see though if this fits into the words of Rabbi Yossi. The Gemara says it doesn't fit. If this is what Rabbi Yossi is coming to argue, where do you see this in the words of Rabbi Yossi? Ihachi. If so, what did Rabbi Yossi say? Kol she'ein paisel al yedei acherim, that if you don't passel others, ein paisel al yedei atzmai. So then the woman does not become pasul to you. Now, why is he saying this? He should have said the exact reverse. That would fit into this halacha that we just said. What should have he said? Kol she'ein paisel al yedei atzmai. Since your wife is not pasul to come back to get married to you, you're allowed to go back to your wife. That's the first point that he should say. Then ein paisel al yedei acherim. So too, your brother-in-law, even though his wife lived with another man, she could also go back to her husband. That's what he should have said. So the lashon of Rabbi Yossi isn't the reverse of what he should have said over here. The point is that you can marry your wife again, and the brother-in-law could marry his wife again. Not in the reverse. That's what it should have said. So that can't be what Rabbi Yossi was arguing. The Ella says the Gemara, maybe we could say that Rabbi Yossi was saying, punkt verkehrt. He was coming to say a chumrah. What was the chumrah he was coming to say? So again, we're talking over here about a case that a person's wife and his brother-in-law that's married to his wife's sister went overseas. We thought that they passed away, and now it's discovered that they didn't, and they came back. So maybe Rabbi Yossi is saying as follows. He's saying a chumrah. Just like the wife of his brother-in-law is asur to go back to him. So ishtoinami asira. So too, his wife will be asur to come back to him as well. And the reason for this would be, so Rashi explains, why is the wife also to go back to his brother-in-law? Because once she had a relationship with him, so she became like his husband. He became her husband already, and once he's her husband, she can't go back to it passes her to go back to the second husband. So if she became like his wife already, so now he can't go back and marry the sister because now she's his wife's sister. That's what the Gemara here is. So that's what Rabbi Yossi is arguing. So Adarabah, the point is, Rabbi Yossi is coming to be machmer. Rabbi Yossi is coming to say, in this case, the wife is going to be asur to the brother-in-law, and his wife is going to be asur to him. That's what Rabbi Yossi is coming to say. So the Gemara says, okay, that fits into Rabbi Yossi's words. Hot tainach. So now this makes sense. This is understood when Rabbi Yossi says the words kol shepaisel. Rabbi Yossi says kol shepaisel, that since you, again, not you, your brother-in-law, that is. Kol shepaisel yedei acherim means, since your brother-in-law cannot remarry his wife, so too you can't marry your wife. So the first half of what Rabbi Yossi says makes sense. But what's with the second half of what Rabbi Yossi said? Kol she'eina paisel. The second half of Rabbi Yossi's statement is that if she does not become pasul to someone else, so then your wife does not become pasul to you. Maya vidite. What's Rabbi Yossi saying over here? The second half of what Rabbi Yossi is saying makes no sense at all. So we still don't have an explanation for what Rabbi Yossi said. So the Gemara says, so the Gemara is going to bring here two pshatim. First pshat, Omer Ravami says, Areisha. Really, the argument of Rabbi Yossi over here in this Mishnah connects back to what it said in the beginning of the Perek, the first Mishnah of the Perek. What did it say over there? There, the Mishnah made a difference between a woman that went and got married to someone else after she thought her husband died. There's a difference if she got married based on the words of an Eid Echad, and Bezdin was mad to her to get married to someone else, or she got remarried to someone else based on two Eidim. What did it say there in the Mishnah? Nisas al pi Bezdin, if she got remarried based on the words of the Bezdin, which is relying on an Eid Echad, so then, Teitzei, she's going to have to leave her second marriage. upetura min carbon, but she will not have to bring a carbon because she was relying on the bezdin. So the bezdin has to bring a carbon. Al pi edim, if she got remarried because edim told her that her husband died, she doesn't rely on the bezdin. So then Teitze, she's going to have to leave her second husband. Her first husband showed up, v'chayeves b'carbon, but she's going to have to bring a carbon. She didn't rely on the bezdin, she was relying on the edim that she heard, so she's going to have to bring a carbon. And on that the Mishnah said, Yafe koicha shel bezdin shepatra min carbon. The koyach of bezdin is stronger that it patters her from a carbon. That's the case that we had in the beginning in the first Mishnah regarding a woman that got remarried when she thought her husband died. Now in our Mishnah here, the Tanakama continues and says as follows: Lo yishna al pi edim. It makes no difference if we're speaking about a case of edim. So now we're coming back over here to the case of our Mishnah. What's the case of our Mishnah over here? That both a person's wife and his brother-in-law went out of town, and he was told that his wife and his brother-in-law passed away. And now the question is, could you remarry your wife, even though you had a relationship with her sister? And could the brother-in-law take back his wife? That's the case over here in our Mishnah. So what does the Tanakama in our Mishnah say? Lo yishna al pi edim. It makes no difference if the case is that Edim came and said that your wife and your brother-in-law passed away. The Eishes Gisoi Sharye. So in that case, so Eishes Gisoi, the wife of your brother-in-law, can go back to him. Right? This whole halacha that a woman cannot go back to her first husband does not apply if she married a second husband al pi edim. Because al pi edim, if you remember, we learned in the beginning, then it's a einus. She was relying on edim. She can go back to her first husband. So whether it's a case that this woman can go back to her brother-in-law because she had a relationship with another man based on edim, so it's not her fault at all. So sharia, so that would be allowed. And v'lo yishna al pi bezdin, and it doesn't make a difference if it's a case where it was only a eid echad that said that her husband died, and therefore the eshes gisei asira. So now your brother-in-law will not be able to remarry his wife because she should have made a better investigation. Either way, the Tanakama says it doesn't make a difference if this woman is allowed to get married to your brother-in-law or not. Your wife will be mutter to you. The heter of a person to go back to his wife after he had a relationship with his sister because he thought that his wife died, it's not connected at all. It makes no difference what the halacha is going to be with your brother-in-law. Whether the sister, which is the other wife here, whether she can go back to the brother-in-law or not, you could always remarry your wife. That's what the Tanakama is saying. And on that, the Kamalei Rabbi Yosi came and said, no, these two things are connected to one another. If it's al pi bezdin, if the case is that this woman got married to you because of bezdin, which bezdin always means based on an eid echad, the paisel al yidei achedim. So now she will be pasel ta achedim, meaning that she can't go back to her husband, which is your brother-in-law. So paisel al yidei atzmai. So you will not be able to remarry your wife as well, which is her sister. Because if she can't go back to her husband, and the reason is because you already married her, so now your original wife, which is her sister, is a sister of your wife. You can't marry a sister of your wife. So in such a case, just like she can't go back to her husband, which is your brother-in-law, you can't go back to your wife. Al pi edim, but if she married you according to Edim. She thought her husband died because Edim said so. So now she will not be puzzled to others. In other words, she will not be puzzled to your brother-in-law, which was her husband. She can go back to him. So then, the same will apply to you as well, that you could remarry your wife. So Rabbi Yosi is saying these two brother-in-laws, their halacha of their wives are dependent one on another. You can't, if your brother-in-law is allowed to remarry his wife, you're allowed to remarry your wife. If your brother-in-law is not allowed to remarry his wife, you're not allowed to remarry your wife. That's the halacha that Rabbi Yosi was saying, and it fits perfectly into his words. This is one pshat. Another pshat the Gemara says, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha says, La'olam HaSeifa. Really, Rabbi Yosi is arguing on what it said over here in this Mishnah. We don't have to connect it back to the first Mishnah in the beginning of the Pedic. And when it's said in our Mishnah, the case, so again, the point is we're talking about a case where a person's wife and the brother-in-law went overseas, and he was then told that both his wife and his brother-in-law passed away. Okay, and therefore he married his brother-in-law's wife, which was his wife's sister. So, but what the Gemara is going to add now is there are two different scenarios in this case. And we had this concept before. Either the case over here is that he was there was only a kedushin to his wife. He didn't fully marry his wife yet. There was only a kedushin. Or the case is that he was fully married to his wife, on Nisuin. And in both of these cases, the Tana Kama said, you will be allowed to remarry your wife if she comes back. The fact that you had a relationship with her sister does not matter. So there's two cases here. So one case is the Azli Arusasai Vigisai. One case is that your Arusa, only the first stage of marriage, went overseas, and your brother-in-law that was married to her sister also went overseas, and you were told that they both died. And Had Azli Ishta Vigisa. And there's another case where your wife, you were fully married to her, and your brother-in-law went overseas. So now regarding both of these cases, the Tanakama says, Loishna Ishta Vigisa. It doesn't matter if this was your wife fully married and your brother-in-law, Loishna Rusasa Vigisa, and it doesn't matter if it was a wife that there was only a kedushin for, and your brother-in-law that went overseas, and then again the same thing happened, that you thought that they died and then they came back. So what's the halacha in both of these cases? Eishes Gisai Asira. So your brother-in-law's wife will be asr to him because she got married to someone else, and any woman that gets married to someone else cannot go back to her first husband. And the ishtoi sharia, and your wife will be mutta to you, even though you had a relationship with her sister. You are allowed to remarry her wife. That's the halacha of the Tanakama. He doesn't make a distinction whether your wife was fully married to you or not fully married to you. But on this, Rabbi Yossi comes and says there's a reason to make a difference. It will matter whether you were fully married to your wife or not. Rabbi Yossi comes and says there's a difference. Now, what's the basis of the difference? Before I read the Gemara inside, if you remember, we had yesterday, the Gemara says that there's a difference between being fully married to your wife or not fully married. And that is that when you're fully married, the person does not make any conditions once he's fully married. The person's not going to say, I'm fully married to you, we're going to have relations with one another, but there's a certain condition whether this should be a bias kedushin or bias nus, or bias nisuan, that is nus. Person doesn't make conditions with his wife that he's fully marrying now. But for Kiddushin, it is possible that a person makes a condition. He gives her money or a ring for Kiddushin, and he makes a condition with her that the Kiddushin should only take effect on the following condition. So therefore there'll be a difference over here. So therefore what Rabbi Yossi is saying is as follows. If it's your wife that you were fully married to and your brother-in-law that went overseas, the there's no way you could say that there was any condition over here in this nisuan when you're fully married to her. So therefore, Rabbi Yossi says the halacha will be the eina paisel al yedei acher. If so, Rabbi Yossi holds that even your brother-in-law's wife that had a relationship with another man will be able to go back to her husband. Now this is a chiddush that Rabbi Yossi says. This goes back to the point that I said before. Rabbi Yossi holds this idea that a woman that thought that her husband died and went and married another man cannot go back to her original husband is not only stama knas. It's not. If it would be stama knas, we wouldn't ask her to go back to her first husband. The main concern we have is machzeh grushasai, that it looks like she got remarried to someone else because the first husband divorced her, and therefore she got married to someone else. And now the first husband is marrying someone that he's not allowed. He's returning a gerusha. That's the main concern that Rabbi Yossi has. Now, what's the point over here? In this case, there's no such a concern of machzeh grushasai. Why not? Because first of all, everybody understands that you're not allowed to marry her. Even if she was a grusha, you're not allowed to marry her. She's your wife's sister. So nobody's going to think that the first husband divorced her and that's why you now married her. The only thing that people could think is that maybe the first husband made a condition for the kiddushin, and that condition was not fulfilled, and therefore you now married her, and now you divorced her, and she's going back to the first husband. That's what people might think. So therefore what the Gemara is saying is, that mistake people won't make if you fully married her. If you fully married her, there's no conditions. A person does not make conditions when you fully married her. So if you fully married her, people are going to understand that she was never married to the second husband. The whole thing was a mistake. She thought that her husband died, but really he did not die, and therefore she's going back to her original husband. So again, the point is that in such a case, when there was a full marriage over here, and she got remarried to someone else, so according to Rabbi Yossi, there's no reason that we should say that she can't go back to her first husband. Nobody's going to make a mistake that she got married to the second husband, because there was no conditions made over here. So therefore, ein a paisel al yedei atzmai. So too, b'nigeya to your wife, so you can go and marry your wife as well. However, when it comes to a case where a person was not fully married to his wife, it was only the first stage of marriage, Kedushin, and your brother-in-law, they both went overseas, and you thought that they died, and now they came back. So over here, people could make a mistake that you're remarrying a woman that was divorced. You're remarrying a woman that you're not allowed. Why? The ikala meimar. What are people going to say? To know havale b'kiddushin, that there was a t'nai over here in this kiddushin, and therefore what happened? That's why she went and got married to someone else. There was first a kiddushin with you, and then she got married to someone else, and now how could she get married to someone else? Because there was a t'nai in the kiddushin, and because of the t'nai in the kiddushin, the t'nai was not fulfilled, and she got married to someone else, and he divorced her, and now you're going to remarry her. So therefore, in such a case, you're not allowed to remarry her. So just like your brother-in-law cannot remarry his wife, you're also not allowed to marry your wife again. That's the halacha that Rabbi Yossi is saying. So so too, this will passel you to get remarried to your wife. So this is the point that Rabbi Yossi was arguing on. There's a difference whether you were fully married to your wife or when you were not fully married to your wife. And the point of the difference over here is when you're fully married, so then there's no conditions that a person makes. When a person is not fully married, it's possible that you make a condition for the kiddushin. So Amar Rav Yehuda Mashmul, so now Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, halacha ke Rabbi Yossi. We paskin like Rabbi Yossi, and at this point the Gemara thinks that what he was saying was, we paskin like this last halacha over here that we just said, that Rabbi Yossi says that in a case where you weren't fully married to your wife, you're concerned about this condition that was made, and therefore people are going to think that she got remarried, that she got married now to the second husband, and therefore she can't go back to the first husband. Maskef la Rav Yosef. So on this, that Shmuel says that Allah is like Rav Yossi. So Rav Yosef asks, Umiyam Shmuel achi. Did Shmuel say that we paskin like Rav Yossi? But for Itmar, we learned the following machlokes between Rav and Shmuel. Yevamos, when it comes to a Yevamos, so Rav amarei keishesish. The halacha of a Yevamos is the same as an eishesish. Shmuel lama ena keishesish. The halacha of a Yevamos is not the same as an eishesish. Now, it's not clear what this machlokes was about. Comparing a Yevamos to an Eishesish in what case? Vamer Avona, and Avona explained, the case is that there was a Kiddushin, and here we're speaking only about Kiddushin, only the first stage of marriage. A person was Mekadesh, his wife, and he went overseas, and now the brother hears that his brother passed away. So he went and got married to his wife to do the mitzvah of Yibum. And then what happens? The brother shows up. The Rav Amar, so Rav says, Harehi ke'eshes ish. The halacha for her will be like the halacha of an eshes ish, v'asura le'yavam, and she's not allowed to go back to her yavam. Just like by any eshes ish, we say that once she had a relationship with someone else, when she thought that her husband died, she can't go back to the original husband. The same is over here, benigay to this case, when it says here in the Gemara, v'asura le'yavam, yavam means the first brother, even though yavam means usually the second brother. Here it means that once her brother was miyavim her, she can't go back to the first brother, just like the halacha by every eshes ish. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says, Eina ke'eshesish. Shmuel says, no, she's not like an eshesish, v'shar yalei, and she's allowed. And the reason is because there's a difference over here. B'nigeya to a regular case where a woman married someone else when she thought that her husband died. So over there, it looks like that a person is machzik grushasai. People might think that the first husband divorced her, and now the second husband went and married her. But over here, b'nigeya to this case, since we're speaking about two brothers, no one's going to think that because you're not allowed to marry a wife of your brother. So therefore, in this case, nobody's going to make such a mistake, and therefore, she's allowed to go back to her first husband. But the point is, what do you see over here? Why would Shmuel say that this is allowed? Why aren't you concerned that since the first brother was only Mekadesher, maybe there was a T'nai in that Kiddushin? And if there was a Tanai in that Kiddushin, people might think and say that therefore now the second brother married her and he divorced her, and now she's going back to her first husband after the second brother divorced her. Shmuel before said, if he paskins like Rabbi Yosi, that we're concerned about this Tanai. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye says, no, there's no question here. How do you know that when Shmuel said the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi, he was saying the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi based on the second pshat, which was Rabbi Yitzchak Nafche's pshat, and Rabbi Yitzchak Nafche said that the whole basis of Rabbi Yosi is that we're concerned that people are going to think that there was a Tanai made in the Kiddushin. That's why you have a question. Maybe Shmuel understood what Rabbi Yosi said, like the first pshat we said before. That has nothing to do with this. It's a whole different halacha, when you get to the difference of one aid or two aidim. It's a completely different inyan, so there's no contradiction over here at all. Another answer, the Gemara says, V'i nami ad Rav Yitzchak Nafche, even if Shmuel agrees to the second pshat that Rav Yitzchak Nafche said, Mimai da apaisel. How do you know that he was paskening like Rabbi Yosi, b'nigeya to this chumre of paisel, that we're concerned that there was a t'nai for the kiddushin, so therefore if this wife can't go back to your brother-in-law, you can't marry your wife again. Maybe he's not going on that chumre. V'dilme a'ena paisel. Maybe he was going on the other part of what Rabbi Yosi said, and that is when you were fully married to your wife. And there's no concern about any Tanai. That over there, your brother-in-law could marry his wife again, and you could marry your wife again. Maybe he was only paskening like Rabbi Yosi regarding that half. But he's never concerned about any Tanai regarding Kiddushin. Yinami, another answer the Gemara says, the whole pshat that we said before, in what the machlekes of Rav and Shmuel was. Rav and Shmuel, they were arguing whether Yevamos is compared to an Eishes Ish or not. So the Gemara before brought the pshat of Rav Huna. The Gemara says there could be another pshat here. Mimai the Isel de Rav Huna. How do you know that the pshat that Rav Huna said is correct? Dilma Lesel de Rav Huna klal. Maybe that's not the right pshat in the machlekes of Rav and Shmuel. Or but Rav Amnuna kamifligi. Maybe the machlekes here is regarding something that Rav Amnuna said. What did Rav Amnuna say? We had this many times before. Rav Amnuna said as follows: Shemeres yavam shezinsa. When you have a woman that's waiting for her mitzvah of yibum, and she went and had a relationship with another man, asura liyavama. She can't go back now to her yavam for the mitzvah of yibum. That's the halacha that Shmuel said. That Rav Amnuna that is said. Now on this, regarding this exact case, here was the machlekes of Rav and Shmuel. The Rav says that yes, this shemeres yavam is compared to an eishes ish umifsula b'znus, and therefore if she had a relationship with another man, she'll be apostle to her yavam with this znus, just like the halacha is with every eishes ish. Every eishes ish that had a relationship with another man willingly cannot go back to her husband. And over here as well, this shemeres yavam cannot go back to her husband. Shmuel says she's not yet married to him. She's only waiting for the mitzvah of Yibum. So ain't a Eishes Ish. She's not yet like an Eishes Ish. So she had a relationship with another man. She can still go back to her husband. And therefore she's not possible with his nus. So according to this is a whole completely different pshat in the machlekes of Rav and Shmuel. V'nami, or the Gemara brings actually another way how to explain the machlekes of Rav and Shmuel, whether a Yevamos is like an Eishes Ish or not. The question over here is regarding a Yevamos that's waiting for Yibum, and now someone else from the Shuk that's not allowed to get married to her, but someone else from the Shuk went and was Mekadesh her, does that Kiddushin take effect or not? Which is also a subject that Gemara spoke about before. The Rav says Arehi Keishes Ish, that since she's waiting for Yibum, so she's already like an Eishes Ish, V'lei Tafsi ba Kiddushin. So if someone else is Mekadesh her, the Kiddushin does not take effect. The Gemara before brought this from the pasuk Leisia. Leisia Eishes Ameisa Chutza. Leisia means that the Kiddushin does not take effect. And Shmuel Ama'enek Eishes Ish. Shmuel says she's not an Eishes Ish, and the Tafsi ba Kiddushin, even though you're not allowed to be Mekadesh her, but if anyone else was, the Kiddushin will take effect. That's the machlekes here. So again, this is a different machlekes, nothing to do with what we're speaking about over here, so there's no question on Shmuel. But the Gemara asks now in this last pshat, we brought before that Rav and Shmuel once and themselves argue about this before. So why are they arguing again about this? And it says the Gemara, they did not argue about this two different times. There were different students that repeated their machlekes in different words, but they really only argued about this subject once, whether a person is Mekadesh or Yevamos, whether the Kiddushin takes effect or not. Okay, let's continue the Mishnah. Zag Teilige Mishnah, Amru Loi. This is a case we had before. It looks, on its surface, it looks like a complicated case, but it's really a very simple case. Let's see. So, Amru Lai, they say to a person, Meisa Ishtecha, your wife passed away. So what happened? So once his wife passes away, you're allowed to marry a sister of your wife. So he marries a sister of his wife, but they are only paternal sisters. They share the same father. Then he's told, Mesa, that his wife also, the second wife, went overseas. He's told that his second wife passed away as well. So now he marries his second wife's sister, but now this is her maternal sister. They only share the same mother. So what does this mean? That the second and the third wife are sisters, but the third wife is not a sister to the first wife. The first two wives share the same father. The second two wives share the same mother. So the third and the first wife are not related at all. Now he's told Mesa that his third wife passed away. He marries the wife of his third wife, the sister that is of his third wife, but they are paternal sisters. Okay, so now again.
She's from which sister?
The third, again, he's told that his third wife passed away, and he marries her sister, but he marries a fourth wife now, but the fourth wife is only a sister to the third wife, sharing the same father. Okay, and now what happened? Mesa, he's told that his fourth wife passed away. Now he marries a fifth wife, which is the sister of the fourth wife, sharing the same mother. So it comes out that the fifth wife is related to the fourth wife. They're sisters, they're sharing the same mother, but the fifth wife is not related to the third wife. The third wife was a sister to the fourth wife, sharing the same father, but they don't share the same mother, b'chlal. The fourth wife and the fifth wife share the same mother. So the fifth wife is not related to the third wife. So what happens now? This is what he was told. So after all of this, it comes out, Kulan kayamais. All of these wives that he was told passed away, they all show up. They're all alive. So the question now is, which wife is he allowed to go back to and which wife is he not? So Mutter B'Rishaina, so the first wife, he can go back to the first wife. That's the halacha that we learned before, that you can go back to the first wife. And now B'Shlishis, you can go back to the third wife as well. Right? You're allowed to marry more than one wife. In the time of the Gemara, you can marry as many wives as he wants. His third wife is not related to his first wife. The first and second wife are sisters, but the third wife is not a sister to the first wife. So you can go back to his third wife. And the B'Chamishis, you can go back to the fifth wife as well. You can't go back to the fourth wife because the fourth wife is a sister to the third wife. So her kedusha never took effect. Can't go back to the second wife because the second wife is a sister to the first wife. So that kedusha never took effect either. But the first, third, and fifth wife are not related to one another. So he goes back being married to them. And also, Paitris Tzarisayim. And if he then passes away without any children, these three wives are rival wives of one another. And if one of them does yibum, it patters the other. The Asr, but he will not be allowed to now get married, to be with Bishniya, with his second wife that he married, Ubrivius, and with the fourth wife that he married. Because their kedusha never took effect. They are sisters of his wives that he's married to. And if he has relations with the second or third or fourth wife, that is, so then it will not pater any of the other wives. These are not his wives. Now, what happens if the case, the Gemara is going to just reverse this a little bit, the Mishnah that is, the case is, v'imba ala shniya, if he goes and gets married to the second wife that we were speaking about, which was a sister to the first wife, sharing the same father, la'acha misa serishayna, after the first wife actually passed away. In other words, as the Gemara will soon explain, when it says over here, la'acha misa serishayna, this means that the first wife actually did pass away. Okay, so now he got married to his second wife, and the continuation of the story is exactly the same. But the point is now that the first wife passed away, so the kiddushin for the second wife took effect. So then the halacha is going to be mutter b'shniya b'revius. So who's his real wives here? The second wife is that marriage took effect, and the fourth wife, which is not related to the second wife, also took effect. And these two are rival wives, and one will pater the other if you do the mitzvah of Yibum. And v'asar b'shlishis u'b'chamishis. But the third wife, which is related to the second wife, they share the same mother, and the fifth wife, which is related to the fourth wife, their marriage never took effect, and he's also to them. They're the sister of his wives. And there, if he has relations with any of them, it doesn't pater a rival wife because they're not his wife b'chlal. So that's the halacha here of the Mishnah. Just a very simple cheshbon. You have to see who of these sisters are related to one another and who's not, and then you know who you can remain married to and who not. The Mishnah continues with a completely different tadin over here. Ben teisha shanim v'yoyim echad. A yavam, which is not bar mitzvah, he's 9 years old. Under the age of 9, the bia of a child, the relations of a child that's under 9 years old doesn't have any credibility, they have no significance at all. But over here, a bia of a ben teisha from 9 years old, so as Rashi here explains, minat this bia does not take effect at all. But midrabanan, they said that this bia takes effect. So now, who paisel al yedei achin? He will passel any other brothers to have yibum with this woman. Once he did the mitzvah of yibum with this woman, so he passels the other brothers of doing yibum for her. V'ha'achin paislin al yadai. And if any of the other brothers had a relation with this yevama, so they will passel him, this ben teisha, this brother that's not bar mitzvah yet, that he now will not be able to have relations with her. Ella, but there's a difference between this katan and the other brothers. Who paisel tchila? He will passel the other brothers to have relations with this woman if he came first and did bia with her first. The Gemara will explain in a moment. Mishnah, that is, will explain in a moment. V'ha'achin, but the brothers will passel her from having relations with this ben teisha, with this cotton. Tchila v'seif, whether they had relations with her first or second. And the Mishnah explains, Keitzad, what does this mean? Ben teisha shana v'yoyim echad, when you have a child. So he's only 9 years old, and he's one of the brothers that could do the mitzvah of Yibum. Shubal Yivimtai, so he went and had relations with this Yivame, Pasal Yidei. So now none of the brothers can go ahead and do the mitzvah of Yibum. Only one brother does the mitzvah of Yibum, so once he had relations with her, none of the brothers could do the mitzvah of Yibum. But in the way we have the Mishnah here, that's only if he had relations with her first. Bo allow achen, if any of the brothers had relations with this vame, or va'asu ba maimer, or whether they didn't have relations with her, they did maimer, they gave her a kiddushin midrabanan for a yivame, nasnu get, or any of them gave her a get. Once you give a get, you can't do the mitzvah of yibum anymore. Oy chaltzu, or they did chalitza, paislan al yadai. They will passel now this brother, which is 9 years old, to do the mitzvah of yibum. And it doesn't matter, even if they did any of this after he had relations with him, with her that is, it doesn't matter. Still, she will not be able to go back to him. Okay, so the point is, the bia, as Rashi says, the bia of a cotton is not as effective as the bia of a gadol. The bia of a cotton is only midrabanan. So that's the difference of here. Okay, the Gemara will explain. Let's see. But first the Gemara goes back to clarify the pshat in the first cases of the Mishnah. Frek the Gemara, Otu kulu lav la'acha misas rishayna ninu. What did it say in the Mishnah? In the second case, when it spoke about where he's going to be mutter to be married to the second and fourth wife, so the lashon of the Mishnah was that v'mbal ashniya la'acha misas rishayna. He married a second wife after the first wife passed away. So the Gemara is asking, in the first case, he was also told that his first wife passed away. At this point, the Gemara didn't understand what's the difference between the two cases. In both cases, he was told that his first wife passed away. Rav Sheisha says the difference is very simple. In the second case, it's speaking about la'acha misas rishayna vadai, that his first wife actually passed away. In the first case, he was told that his first wife passed away, but she didn't actually pass away. In the second case, his first wife actually passed. In the second case, that is, his first wife actually passed away. So therefore, the kiddushin or the marriage for the second and the fourth wife took effect. Okay, let's finish here the Gemara. The next piece of Gemara from the whole Gemara today is the easiest piece. So let's try. So then it said ben teisha shana v'chulu, that the bia of a 9-year-old that did the mitzvah of yibum will passel the brothers. So the Gemara ben teisha shana v'yemechad tchila passel. So what it said in our Mishnah is, if he came and did bia first, so then he passels his brothers. B'saif loy passel. But if his brothers already had a relation with this Yevama, and now he comes, this Ben Teisha, this 9-year-old child, comes and has a relation with this Yevama, he will not now passel the brothers to have a relation with him. That's what it seems like our Mishnah is saying. But Vatani Rav Zvid Bar Oishia learned in a Braisa, Haisa Maime bi Yevimtai. A person did Maimer, that's the Kiddushin b'Derabanan for his Yevama. V'achakach ba achiv shehu ben tes shanim v'yoyim echad. And after the brothers, one of the brothers already did Maimer, now this 9-year-old brother came and went and had bia with her. So pasla, he does passel the brother that did the kiddushin b'Derabanan. So what do we see? That even after one of the brothers did maimer b'saif, still this bia of this 9-year-old child is strong enough to passel the brother on him. Amri, so they answered, you're right, we have to change the pshat in our Mishnah. Bia pasel afilu b'saif. If this 9-year-old child had bia with the Yevama, whether he came and had bia first or after one of the brothers already gave the kedushin with the Rabbanan, either way he's going to passel the brothers. Maimer, but if this child comes and gives Maimer, he gives a kedushin with the Rabbanan to one of the Yevama, so to the Yevama that is, so tchila pasel, if he did this before any of the brothers, he's going to passel the brothers of having to be married to her. B'saif loy pasel. But if he does this after any of the brothers, then he's not going to passel them. Ubiyah, but when it comes to biyah, if he actually had relations with this Yevama, afilu b'saif pasel. That's even if he did it after one of the brothers gave Maimer, still he's going to passel. But the Gemara asks, that's not what it seems from the lashon of our Mishnah. Va'katani, but what did it say in our Mishnah? Elishuhu paisel tchila, that he passels only if he did biyah first. V'hein tchila v'saif, and they, the brothers, will passel through their biyah whether they did it in the beginning or after. And then the Mishnah says, Keitzad ben teisha shana v'yimechad shebal yevimtoi v'chulo. So the Mishnah seems to be saying that when it comes to biyah, the biyah of a ben teisha shanim, this child, will only passel the brothers if he did the biyah first, not second. So how could we say that the biyah of the ben teisha passels the brothers of getting married to her, whether he did it first or after they did maimer already? So the Gemara answers, so you'll have to say there's something missing in our Mishnah. This is how you have to read our Mishnah. This 9-year-old child, who paisel tchila, so he passels the brothers if he goes first, and they will passel on him that he can't marry this Yevama, whether they came first or even after him. And now you read the Mishnah as follows. When is that true? B'maimer. Only regarding Kedushin b'derabbanan there's a difference. Avol biyah, but when it comes to biyah, paiseles afilu b'saif. So then, even this ben teisha, this child, will passel the Yevama on the brothers, even if he came after. Keitzad, and then you read the Mishnah as follows. Keitzad ben teisha shana v'yemechad abal yevimtoi pasal al yedei achin. That he will passel the brothers, whether he came first or whether he came after, it doesn't matter. Okay, that's the way you read the Mishnah. But now what does it come out of here? That this ben teisha, a child that gave kedushin midrabanan to a Yevama, that kedushin takes effect. So the Gemara asks, so mi islay maimer klal al yedei achin, does the maimer of a child take effect that he now will passel the brothers? But Vatanya, we learned in Abraisa ben teisha shana v'yom echad, if one of the brothers is 9-year-old, so who paisel b'davar echad, he could passel any of his brothers to get married to this Yevama in one way. Any of the brothers, though, they can passel him of getting married to this Yevama in 4 different ways. And the Braisa explains, who paisel achin b'biyah. If he has relations with the Yevama, then he passels the brothers. But the brothers can now passel him of getting married to this Yevama in 4 different ways. B'biyah, whether they have relations with this Yevama, b'maimer, or they give her a kedushin b'darabanan, b'get, or they gave a get to this Yevama, b'chalitza. So it says here clearly that biyah is the only way that this child could passel the brothers. There's no maimer. It seems like that he can't do maimer at all. So the Gemara says, no, the biyah, the pasla, bein betchila, bein b'saif. The reason it mentions only biyah regarding this child is because biyah, whether he had relations with this Yevama first or after the brothers already did maimer, so then psikale. So that's a clear case that he will always passel the brothers, so therefore it mentions it. Maimer, but when it comes to maimer, when this child gave a kedushin b'derabbanan, the betchila pasel, only if he gave it before the brothers, then he will passel the brothers. B'saif, loy pasel, but if he gave it in the end, he will not pasel, so loy psikale, so therefore this is not a case which is clear, so therefore did not mention this. Itmanam Yom Rav Yehuda Mashmul. So Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel as well. Yeshle get, a child could also, just like he can give maimer, if he gives a get to a Yevama, it now passes any of the brothers to do the mitzvah of Yibum. V'chein Amar Rav Tachlifu bar Avimi Yeshle maimer. He can give maimer to passel the brothers, or a get like we said. Tanya Nami Hachi. We learned in the Braisa Yeshle get v'Yeshle maimer divrei Rav Meir. Rav Meir said that a child that's 9 years old, he gives a get or he does maimer. Either way, he passels the brothers. But the Gemara asks him this from another brayse. Is it true that Rav Meir holds that a child could give a get and passel the brothers? But Vatanya, we learned in another brayse, also biyas ben teisha, that the biyah of a 9-year-old for a Yevama, they considered it kemaimer begadol, that it has the same status as a maimer for a gadol, just like the maimer for a gadol takes effect only midrabanan. The bia of a 9-year-old is also only midrabanan. And Rab Meir says also chalitzas ben teisha, the chalitza of a 9-year-old takes effect keget begadol, like the get that a gadol gives for a yevamah. Now, if what we said before is true, that even a child can give a get to the Yevameh, listni kigitoi. Why does it say that they made his chalitza like the get of a gadol? Let it say that they made it like his get. We just said that he could give a get to a Yevameh. And says the Gemara, Maravuna Bereder Rav Yeshua Islay, a child could give a get to his Yevameh, but vizutar. The effect of his get is less than the effect of the get of a gadol. That's why it's not comparing it to his get. In what way is it less than the effect of the get of a gadol? So the Gemara says as follows. It depends according to which opinion, and this goes back to a machlokes that we had a long time ago in the Masechta here. L'Rabbi Gamliel da'amar ein get acha get. Rabbi Gamliel says if one brother gives a get to the Yevameh, a second brother that gives a get to the Yevameh does not have any effect. Once one gave, the second one is worthless. But when is that true? Begadol acha gadol. If you had one brother that's a gadol, then another brother that's a gadol that gives a get, or v'katan acha katan, or we had one brother that's a katan, another brother that's a katan that gave a get. So then the second get, which is the same as the first, does not take effect. Avogadol acha katan. But if first a katan gave a get and then a gadol gave a get, so the get of the gadol is stronger. That does take effect. Mahani, that will work. Now, Rabbanan, what's Rabbanan's opinion? The Amri yesh get acha get. Rabbanan b'chlal hold that there is a get that takes effect after another get. So they say hanimili begadol acha gadol. When does one get take effect after another? That's only if it's a get of one brother that's a gadol and another brother that's a gadol. Bekatan acha katan. Avokatan acha gadol. Once a brother that's a gadol that gave a get, and now a brother that's a katan comes along and wants to give a get, his get does nothing. It will not passel this Yevamah on the brothers. Loi mahani, that does not take effect, because even though there is a get for a Yavam that's a katan, it's not as effective as the get for the brother which is a gadol.